due to the nature of the injury and the parts of the brain that are typically damaged, it can actually alter people's ability to see themselves objectively or as another person would see them. So they typically have the view that they are the same as they always were, despite really obvious changes. So usually people are aware of physical changes, so they'd be aware my left side's not as strong as my right. But some of the more complex impairments, such as changes in memory, attention concentration, emotion control, and some of the more so-called personality changes, things like becoming more impulsive or disinhibited in conversation, people are often not aware of that. And if you're not aware of those changes, it really affects your motivation to be part of rehabilitation and also whether you try to use strategies to help manage those problems.
And so, I mean, I used to always understand that people did lose insight as a result of a brain injury. So is this a case of them losing insight or is it something else?
Certainly the word lack of insight is often used.
Yeah.
And I guess I've adopted more awareness because insight is kind of seen as more of a psychiatric term.
Yeah.
So in this case, when we're asking people how are you different now, they will often say, well, I'm not, I'm still the same person.
Right.
So when you're exploring that with people, they often have the view that they haven't changed at all, and it's actually more what the family is reporting, or the doctor didn't know me beforehand, but you know, I've always been this way. And it makes sense because it's quite threatening to people to acknowledge, well, I'm now quite aggressive, I'm now forgetful. So some of those impairments I think are very hard for people to come, you know, accustomed to in themselves. So there is a natural tendency to protect yourself emotionally, and rather than confront, you know, some of those painful changes.
Right. So what are some of the implications for that for someone who's had a traumatic brain injury?
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, if you're not aware of how you've changed and the impairments you have, you don't see the point of rehabilitation. So you're not willing to go along. You have goals just to resume life as it was, rather than modify those goals in light of the impairments that you face. So it can be very hard for clinicians to engage people with impaired awareness in rehabilitation. You know, family members might need to support the person more or supervise them, and that can really lead to some conflict where the person doesn't feel that they need supervision. You know I can drive safely, but you know, the family and the medical and allied health professionals don't feel that they do. So it can be very frustrating for the person to understand why they're not allowed to resume certain activities because they don't understand, you know, the difficulties that they're facing.
Yeah.